Welcome back to Rider Potential, the series where I, thomasjujube, take a look at seasons of Kamen Rider and look at how they could be adapted in a similar manner to how Power Rangers is adapted from Super Sentai. By taking a look at the aesthetics, source footage, and possible toy sales, I guess how and why a season could perform well outside of Japan, not whether or not it will be adapted. Obviously, we're way past the point of adaptations for some seasons, so this show is done in the spirit of fun and love for toku adaptations and the semantics that happens with them. I'm not expecting Hasbro or anyone to pick up my ideas and make a show, nor am I calling myself smarter than the writers on any of those actual shows, since, well, they're the ones actually working on the shows after all. That fact could not be more present in today's episode, where I'll be taking a look at the savior of Kamen Rider and the progenitor of Rider's Heisei era, Kamen Rider Kuuga, a series that's over 20 years old and is actually already officially distributed with English subtitles. This was voted through to be the next episode after the build in double episodes, so here we are. Stay tuned for the end to figure out what's next. If you're new and want to learn more about how Rider Potential operates, I recommend watching the quick basics video where I go over how segments usually proceed. Also, if you want to hear my full review of Kamen Rider Kuuga as a season, go check out that full season review, where I talk all about the characters and the story. Today's more of a look at the visuals of the season and expansions on ideas in that season. So let's begin Rider Potential Kuuga. Kamen Rider Kuuga's forms are a great example of uniformity in designs and demonstrating power growth. Starting with the growing form, there's this sort of wonkiness to its design. The white doesn't really work with the dull orange and gold. The horns are small and give the helmet a timid, rounded look, but overall, it accomplishes its goal of being this pre-form to the Kuuga powers. The power of Kuuga is demonstrated with the addition of color to this design. The four base forms that create this primary source of power are largely all identical, making use of the same helmet and leg designs from growing, with the only distinctions being the chest piece and the colors, of course. The colors really only serve to show a large difference between forms, because something that's really cool about them is how they all have different chest pieces to signify their usages in combat. Mighty form uses a nice rounded out design to demonstrate how the form itself is rounded out in abilities as the primary form. Dragon form looses the shoulder armor largely because it's meant to be the quickest of all the forms and operates with a staff, a weapon that requires speed. Pegasus is meant to be a long-range attacker, so one side of it gets heavily armored to defend while shooting, and the chest gets a bit bulked out. And then for the full armor, we've got Titan form, which is mostly silver to signify how it's more armored compared to the others. The rising forms are the next evolutions, which is very clearly shown with all the added gold. Given how the original versions of the forms already used gold, bringing in more of it for these upgrades does a great job of visually showing Kuuga's growing strength. The small additions to the weapons is another cool touch to show that the power is transferred even to them. I love that Amazing Mighty, my favorite form in this season by the way, just gets a new shin pad for the rider kick because it just gets, a rider kick for its final attack. This is doubled with Amazing Mighty, which does the reverse of how riding forms expanded on the gold accents of the forms and instead expands on the black accents. It's not only a great look visually, but also a great showcase of how the darkness of the Kuuga powers is increasing, and then it ultimately comes to a head with Ultimate, literally. Ultimate form is meant to be the pinnacle of the Kuuga power set, and because of the setup with the other forms, it comes across spectacularly. The gradual introduction of more black and gold into the forms to signify increasing power makes Ultimate form truly feel like the final form and a final evolution to the powers, which is especially clear with this being the first and only form to drastically change the design template. The helmet is changed for the first time with a new pair of horns on the top and the pseudo fangs on the bottom, and the gold now becomes these flowing veins across the suit, making it look almost alive. Juxtaposed with the first on-screen form, you can truly feel the power that flows throughout this suit. From plain white to new colors to extra gold to full black and a removal of anything familiar to the other designs, Kuuga's forms are a great example of visual storytelling. Not only can you get a good idea of each form's purpose from a basic look, you can also see how the powers increase by looking at them all simultaneously and how design aspects get accentuated. For this theoretical adaptation, Kuuga's aesthetics are great because of their simplicity to be an eye-catching assortment for a new show, but they also work perfectly on a deeper level with their ties to the story and great demonstration of abilities. And of course, they're just freaking awesome. To segue into the source footage segment, one thing that has always bugged me about Kuuga's aesthetics is the Arkle. It looks great, I consider it on the higher end of rider belts, but it just looks so modern and futuristic, which is such a stark contrast from how the suit is meant to be this ancient warrior for the Linto. The belt itself is supposed to be some sort of ancient technology, and it doesn't look like it is because outside of some Linto text on it, it just looks way too modern to me. So I'm going to use this idea and work it into the story, kind of similar to what I did in Sentai Potential Zyuohger if you watched that video. Let's start at the beginning. The setup of the show is largely the same as it was in Kuuga, with Daguva's awakening recreating the Grongi legions and an excavation team coming to the site afterwards, but here we won't be introduced to Godai or the Arkle. What will be introduced in the beginning, not in this specific scene, is the beginning of the Grongi's game, with Gumun, the spider, beginning his turn and causing havoc. Godai and Sakurako go to the police station to inspect the findings from the excavation and try to help the police understand what is happening, but just before they leave the facility, it is attacked by Gumun, who knocks a mysterious belt out of a case in mid-transportation. It obviously lands at the feet of Godai, and here I don't know if we want some sort of tragic backstory for Godai where he was put in a similar situation to save a loved one in the past and failed, or maybe the belt speaks to him like in the original season. They both would either add to Godai's character or they would tie into the mystery I am going to talk about in a second, so I don't know, I guess let me know which one you would prefer. Either way, he puts on the belt and becomes Kuuga growing, and the rest plays out as normal. When Godai meets up with Ichijo, Kuuga learns that the belt, which is obviously the Arkle, was actually police technology in the middle of transportation, but since it was accidentally removed from transportation and is now DNA locked to Godai, he is the sole user. In this aspect, the Arkle will function more like recent drivers where they're just excess technology that has to be put on. Ichijo will grow to trust Godai like before, but now he has to keep this trust more of a secret because Kuuga is actively using stolen police technology. Where everything starts to come together is with Godai and the rising forms. The arc is more impactful than it already was because there should be no way Kuuga is coming back. With the setup of the Arkle just being police gear, just technology, it shouldn't be able to revive him, but it does. After his death, the Arkle becomes absorbed by Godai's body and brings him back to life. From that point on, the Arkle is a part of Godai and he needs to summon it like in the original season. Stuff plays out like normal, and by the end of the Rising Form arc with Amazing Mighty, and he begins to work more with the police, the truth is revealed behind the Rising Forms. At the excavation site in the beginning of the show, the Arkle was uncovered, but not in its full state, in a primitive prototype state. Upon closer examination, it is revealed that this technology had two forms, a plain, simplistic form that gave the researchers visions of a learning child, and a golden form that gave visions of a powerful warrior clad in black that would destroy the world. However, with the Grongi attacks beginning, the researchers decide that the technology is needed, so they give it modifications. Separate red, blue, green, and purple forms to cover different aspects of combat in the hope that this would suppress the ancient darkness and make the need for it unwarranted. It was in the middle of transportation to a testing site in the first episode before being attacked by Gumun with the intent of destroying the Arkle. So when Go died, to revive its user, the Arkle tapped back into its ancient powers. So the rising forms are meant to be the beginning of this ancient past rising from the depths, the Arkle reconnecting to its origin. Amazing Mighty is later seen as this perfect combination, utilizing the strength of the ancient Kuuga armor and the new modifications made for it, a purified version of the Dark Warrior seen in the visions. I envision Amazing Mighty getting actual usage in the show, maybe using all the weapons to demonstrate its perfect capabilities, but it actually will be more of a ploy from Daguva in the background to show how powerful Amazing Mighty is in building it up as the savior for the humans and negating the need for the ultimate power seen in the vision that is still deemed too dangerous. This sets the stage for Daguva's first attack to draw out the ultimate power, and like in the original show, it ends in defeat for Godai and causes him to have to tap into the full power of the Arkle, the one dreaded by the cast for the whole season, the ancient warrior of the past, Ultimate Form. For a moment, the power of Ultimate becomes too much for Godai to handle and he succumbs to the darkness as Daguva intended, before remembering the smiles of his friends, the ones to protect, and he breaks free into the normal, red-eyes Ultimate Kuuga, completing his journey and defeating Daguva. The idea of the prototype Arkle is actually based off of the Kuuga novel where Mika finds one and it only has the powers of growing an ultimate, so I thought it would be interesting to have that happen here, and the colored forms are a modern addition with their upgrades representing a slow reversal to the past as Kuuga's power grows. And of course, there's room for Ichijo to become a rider as well by having a full man-made rider system as opposed to Kuuga using partly ancient technology in its system. If this did happen, it would happen after Rising Mighty debuts, after Godai joins the police, and it would help to explain this mystery. And then the reason it would have taken so long for this new driver to be constructed is because of the lack of a base structure and research being done on the Arkle getting interrupted by Gumun. I just didn't really go in detail with it here because I still think it seems unnecessary to me since Ichijo is already pretty much a secondary rider, and his lack of rider powers makes his drive to defend the people that much greater. I also don't see it playing into the story beyond helping with the reveal of the use of ancient technology in the Arkle, so there's that as well. The possible sales segment for Kuuga is actually going to be pretty quick here because there's not much to talk about. With ancient figures at $10 each in the 6-inch scale, there's growing form, the 4 base forms, their rising counterparts, and then amazing and ultimate. Then the 4 base forms in a 12-inch scale, same price. That's it. There's a bit more for roleplay items though. I'm including 2 drivers because I think there's some way you can get away with doing the base Kuuga driver in a separate rising plate and then a separate ultimate driver. I know it's possible to combine everything into one package, but 1, looking at the perspective of this from releasing items during the show, that's impossible without spoiling or waiting until the end of the show. 2, the sales need more drivers, and 3, the set where this was done is over $200 and the price of these drivers is $50 each. So along these lines are the 3 rising weapons at $30 each and their normal counterparts at $20 each. Onto the gimmicks, where I'm including that $10 rising plate that you could attach to the base driver. Maybe it pushes a button and bam, new sounds, or it's just for show. And then that's it. The grand total for Kuuga's projected sales are $310. Once again, the lowest number in the potential series, but actually decently close to double. It's less than $50 off, which happens to be the same price as a normal driver. This also happens to be the same price you could probably find the complete selection modification Arkle, so that is quite an interesting twist. To get the number up, I think the smartest thing would be to introduce a new rider in some way, whether it's Ichijo or maybe just a driver for Daguva, and you just say like, hey, he's a new rider, but like it's the same suit. This would allow for new 6-inch and 12-inch figures, a new driver, and probably a new weapon, bringing this total up $100 to at least $410. I'm not sure what you would do for gimmicks because the charm of these older seasons, for me, is the lack of gimmicks, and the Arkle already has all the buttons on it to make the different forms, so I guess if you incorporated a new rider, that's where you'd create all these new gimmicks for forms and or attacks. Let's just play with the idea of 3 other forms as a mirror to Kuuga, so that's 3 more $10 figures and a $15 pack of gimmicks. Now we're a little higher at $455. I don't really see much else that could be done to increase the sales here. Even this point is kind of reaching because it's adding an entirely new rider to a season that went out of its way to not include an extra rider. So there's not really an easy way to bulk up the projected sales for Kuuga without compromising aspects of the season, but you can let me know what you would do down below. But for now, like before, I'm just going to be sticking to that base $310 for future episodes. So an adaptation of Kamen Rider Kuuga would certainly be interesting. Its classic designs would make it either a great start for a new franchise, a striking return to the usual style, or even just a new design altogether. This makes the toy line very simplistic and easy to sell, which is really a necessary feature in this case because Kuuga doesn't really have much going for it, storyline wise, without making some massive alterations to the stock footage. There are opportunities there, of course, but doing so could possibly break up the flow of the season. However, given the simplistic nature of Kuuga's stock footage, it should be pretty simple to add new characters and toys into the show, if only for an episode or 2 to boost up sales and create new and unique ideas centered around Kuuga's characters. I would have liked to see an adaptation for Kuuga because there's really a lot of unique properties in the season that would in turn make its adaptation unique, but alas, we're probably past the point of that happening given the age of the footage and an entirely new new show like this probably won't be filmed out of completely new footage. If there was a chance of it happening though, be sure to let me know what you would like to see happen with a Kamen Rider Kuuga adaptation down in the comment section. If you like this video, go check out that full season review and some other episodes in the potential series for more of my crazy theoreticals, because next time I'm going to be taking the deadliner forward to 2007 and looking at Kamen Rider Den-O. For more Kamen Rider videos, consider subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.